Good morning and welcome to America's Web Radio. We're glad to have you listening in, and this is going to be another excellent David's pick. And just been sitting here talking to our guests, and it's going to be another situation of talking about what a community, what a city is doing to honor their veterans. And we're very fortunate to have our guest on, Brian Johnson, today, and he's the city manager of Peachtree Corners, a city outside of Atlanta that has done something exceptional for remembering veterans. But before we get started, we're going to do what we have started a tradition of doing, and that's just taking a moment of time to remember all of our veterans and those that came before that have sacrificed and given the ultimate, and also the veterans that are alive today and the ones that are serving in active duty. As I had mentioned to Brian, I have a son that's a major in the Air Force, and I'm quite proud of him, and he's doing a wonderful job for his country. And that's so with that being said, we're going to take a moment, and all we ask is that you just think of the folks that have served and are serving. Thank you. Amen. We also do one other thing, and as I don't know how much you ran on in the Navy, but when you went to the infantry, I'm sure you got to do some force marches. And I know when I was on active duty that going through basic and AIT that, that last half a mile of that force run and that area that had been pounded into dust, every now and then that your platoon sergeant or your platoon leader would start up a jody, and I love our jodies. Okay, so we've done our jodies, and we appreciate that, and we forgot to turn off the cue. But anyway, we lived through that. And Brian, welcome to America's Web Radio.
Thanks for having me.
And look forward to hearing more about what you're doing. Well, first off, what you did do, and you were in the Gulf War in Iraq. And so you started out in the Navy and realized that the Navy was just a bunch of guys playing with boats, and decided to join the real guys, the infantry.
Well, I wouldn't go so far as to say we need to pick one or the other. They both certainly serve their purpose. But yes, I did start in my military career in the Navy. I enlisted in the Navy. Was in the cryptology branch of the Navy, specifically electronics intelligence, and spent 4 years there. And then near the end of my enlistment, at the time there was a shortage of officers in the Army, and like happens cyclically, but there will be times where a branch will be short of officers, and what they'll do is they'll create a temporary program in which they will basically attract or attempt to attract some of the enlisted ranks of the other branches to come in and get commissioned. And the thought is that if you're already in the military, you already have gone through basic and learn military ethos and the culture, that if you can teach somebody to chew with their mouth closed and use utensils, you can make them into an officer. And so the Army, he created a program called Blue to Green, and it was a commissioning program, and I applied and got accepted, and had to go back through ROTC, and then did so through the University of Georgia, and then got commissioned as an infantry officer, and then spent another 5+ years active duty in the infantry of the Army, and then resigned my commission at the end of that, and here I am.
And here you are. And thank you for your service. And what do you do during the Army-Navy football game?
That's a great question I'm oftentimes asked. And, you flip a coin. I like to see a great game, and, I could go either way. Both of the, teams are actually, members of both service academies. So there's always some friendly rivalry even within the officer corps between officers who are commissioned through a service academy, through ROTC, or through OCS. So there's, as you will remember, you can basically break down rivalries into the smallest unit you can possibly do. There's rivalries amongst squads of a platoon, amongst branches of the military, amongst, nations, between ships, between divisions on the same ship. If you want, you can find some rivalry somewhere. We know that.
Brian, I think one thing that I have flashbacks of, and not seriously, but I'll think about when I was in or something, and I don't know of anybody that's gone through basic or AIT or whatever that hasn't popped his head up or her head up and said, why in the hell are we doing this, And now, 50 years later, I realize why they did it. And, all of a sudden it comes to, okay, that makes sense. It didn't make sense 50 years ago, but it makes sense today. And I think our military is one of the best organizations, any branch is the best organization for any young person to go through. And we oftentimes, or every week, we suggest that if someone's graduating from high school or from college and they don't know exactly what they want to do, but they have an interest in something, there's a branch of the military that can fulfill their dreams and give them an education. And there's nothing that looks better on a person's resume than to say, I was in the service and I've got my honor discharge and so forth and so on, because the HR person knows that they can depend on that person.
The military is certainly, and I would also join you in saying, the best organization to teach somebody both how to be a leader, but maybe is as importantly is how to be a good follower. And, we all have to do both wherever we're at. At some points we are leading some effort, some project, some group of people, and you've got to learn how to do that right and well. But you also have to learn how to be a good follower and support another leader, because we all have bosses. And I think it teaches both on how to be, a part of something bigger than yourself. And maybe the most important thing it did to me is it taught me the discipline I need to be able to, and self-control, to be able to deny myself things that I would rather be doing and instead work on things that I did not. I've got kids in middle school right now, and, one of the things that's difficult for them to, do, and I strive to teach, is for them to be able to say, look, I really should be studying something, but instead I would rather be something that's do something that's entertaining, and to be able to say, no, I'm not going to do that thing I want. Instead, I'm going to do the thing I need to do. And to have that discipline by yourself without a parent being over you is, once somebody does that and they can work hard, really the sky is the limit. And the military does such a good job of instilling that in someone so that, later on, it was never as hard. I actually went back to grad school. I remember after, my stint in the military, and I remember how easy it was compared to what I remember undergrad to be, because all of a sudden I was merely just denying myself, things. Instead of, going to a movie or watching this or going out for some drinks, I was studying, and all of a sudden I was like, man, this is pretty easy because the military taught me how to do that. So yes, I mean, I am the man I am now, by and large because of the military. Certainly other aspects, family and other stuff, but wouldn't trade 1 second of it. Even the times where I was cold, tired, miserable, people shooting at me, I wouldn't trade a second of it.
And again, thank you for your service, and thank you for your service in the Gulf War and the Middle East. I do, and particularly because of you're the city manager of Peachtree Corners, but part of your responsibility is the Peachtree Corners memorial that you all have. That is great. And I'm sure when you're out there, or I don't know what other organizations you may belong to, but I do always ask one hardball question. And if you need time to think about it, well, I'll give you time to think about it. But that hardball question is, when you're with a group of your peers, other veterans, can you name one veteran that can tell one story only?
Not at all. I don't need to hit any. Not at all.
You get 6 veterans at a table, and you got about 120 different stories that are about to be released. And but that's great. And this is something that we also stress, and is that, in our opinion, today, our veterans are our history books. And every veteran that's listening and listens to any of our shows, they should take their kids or their grandkids or whatever the case might be and tell them about their time in the service. It doesn't have to be gory details or anything like that. It can just be, well, I made this buddy in AIT, or I got to be friends with someone, or whatever, but a story about what they did and what it was like, and the homecoming, and how it was to be separated from your family and so forth. But it's a shame, but our history books are lacking in stories of veterans, and that's why we do this show, why we have a show called A Veteran Story, and many other shows that we're addressing veterans to please tell their kids and grandkids, because you are the history books.
Military service is a very unique experience that, not very many people can empathize with. But because of this one fact, it does make it unique, and that is, those who volunteer, and it's a volunteer organization, but when they volunteer, they're essentially giving Uncle Sam a blank check. And that blank check could be, Uncle Sam may ultimately have to, write the ultimate sacrifice on that check. But for somebody to do that does take a special kind, because it's not like, most of the stuff in the military, most people can do. There's a few things, that not everybody can do, meaning that not everybody has the ability to do it. A lot of it tends to be physical, physical ability. But what really separates, and even within the infantry is hard, but a lot of people could do it. What really separates that is the fact that those people who are in it voluntarily subjected themselves to doing something that others decided not to do. It's not that they couldn't, but other people are like, no, I don't want to do that. And it's hard living, but there are people out there who said, nope, I'll step up. I'll be the one to hold the line, to walk the post, to protect, our freedoms. And doing so does create unique experiences and stories. And yes, those stories should be passed down, if not for no other reason, to inspire our next generation of the importance of service.
And the importance of our country and our flag. I've never had any experience, and I hope I never do, but I've thought often, as we have a flag behind you, a folded flag on our desk, and I don't know, at least if it's in Peachtree Corners, I got somebody now that I can call, but if I came up on somebody destroying our flag, I don't know what I'd do.
It's sacred, and we actually have two locations in which we have a very formal caretaking of the flag. One is at City Hall. In front of City Hall, we have a flag plaza, and then at our Veterans Monument, which is a couple miles up the road at our town center, and it has a flag plaza, and both of them have a flag, lighted flag plaza that has individuals responsible for ensuring the flag, all the flags, but specifically the U.S. flag is in good condition. If it's supposed to be at half staff, to go out there and do that, and to take care of it properly. And when the flag is not in good condition, it is lowered properly, replaced properly. And then we have a Boy Scout troop, a local Boy Scout troop, that actually has a ceremony that destroys the flag per U.S. code as to how to do it. And so it is, a lot of people have looked at that design on that piece of, cloth, and again, paid the ultimate sacrifice and been subjected to some stuff. And so it is a sacred thing. But it's a great rallying symbol for us to rally around.
I think I'm much older than you are, but even at my age, I still get chill bumps, and when an honor guard passes, to me, that's one of the greatest examples of love of a country that you can have. And I get goosebumps, chill bumps, whatever you want to call them, but I can't get away from it.
Same here.
It's just something that's so unique. And like you said, our in my opinion, I was in both ends of the stick, so to speak. I was the end of the draft. I was the start of the lottery, and the end, or what started out as the end of that started the volunteer army. And in my company, I had all three, and I volunteered, but we had draftees, we had those that had been gotten by the lottery, and then we had volunteers. And I don't know. There's something about a volunteer, and I love the volunteer military. I think it's one of the best things that ever happened. You know where the person's head is when they come in. And
there's always, certainly, unfortunately, examples of those who don't necessarily maintain the standard that the military should. But by and large, when it is a volunteer army, you get a much better cut of individual than if there's conscription, just because, if nothing else, the attitude. Yes. I mean, if you have a good attitude and you at least initially want something, you are more apt to try harder, endure, more discomfort or even pain to achieve that than if it's imposed on you. And so attitude, is a huge difference in changing. I've been through a lot of schools and seen people, whether it's jump school, ranger school, Pathfinder school, the schools that have high attrition rates. And it's usually not the physical ability of the individual that separates those who graduate and don't. It's usually the mental attitude and the ability to just fight through the discomfort, pain, and just keep going and never say quit. I've seen physical specimens that I look at and I'm like, wow. I mean, that's just, and they ultimately can't hack it. And I've seen guys that are, somewhat diminutive, guys that you would be like, there's no way they can do it. And they're just like a raw piece of leather. You just can't tear it apart. They're just as tough as we call, as tough as woodpecker lips, and you can't you can't break them. And so it's a more of a mental thing oftentimes than anything, and separates the men from the boys, as they say.
And this is it also separates a winning attitude from somebody that's our enemy or potential enemy. They'll never have that. Let's talk about Peachtree Corners for a minute. Talk about the memorial, and as a business, as a city manager, what all does that entail as well?
Well, I guess I'll start with the last one first. The city of Peachtree Corners, like you said, we're North Atlanta suburb, about 50,000 people, north of 285 in Gwinnett County, largest city in Gwinnett. We're only about 8.5 years old, almost 9 years old. We were created 2012. And we operate our city, the best way to describe it is very similar to a corporation, in that the governing body is a board of directors. In our case, it's called a city council. The board of directors is led by the mayor. He's the chairman of that board as the mayor. And that board of directors hires a CEO to run the organization for them. And in this case, as a city, it's the city manager. So my board of directors hired me, and I work for all 7 of them equally. And, technically I am, 4 or more votes away from being fired at any time. I've got but I work for them, and I advise them when they're considering policies, and I execute the policies that they vote on and operate the city on their behalf, providing all the services a typical city does. So my job, is to run the city. And in the case of the Veterans Monument, some of this, I'm the second city manager the city's ever had. And I only say that to say that the monument effort started before I got to the city. It was started both by some conversations between residents of the city and specifically 2 members of City Council, Mayor Mike Mason and Councilman Alex Wright, both who were veterans, and the conversation about doing something to honor the veterans. And over the course of a number of years, there was a veterans nonprofit, Veterans Monument nonprofit that was created. There was a fundraising campaign, and the funds were raised to create a monument, and it was done so at the city's town center that the city was constructing at the time, and property was carved out along our town green to construct this monument. And the monument is a phenomenal project. There are statues representing some, a certain member of each branch of the military. There's a brick paver plaza for people to purchase a brick paver to honor a veteran of some sort, and it's got a big plaza of places to sit. And then we've got a digital kiosk. And so what we've done is the city had a company come in and record short 2 to 3 minute interviews of people who purchased a brick paver, and allowed either that person who was, name was on the brick paver, or a family to talk about one who maybe have passed away already. They get interviewed or were interviewed, and then that interview is captured and it's hosted on a web platform, and you can go over there, and with your phone and a QR code, you can actually pull up a name of somebody who's honored there, and then you can either hear in their own words the interview, or a family member could talk about their service. So it brings to life much more than just a name on a brick paver, which is cool in and of itself. But in this case, you actually get to hear a little bit about that particular veteran that's being honored and so we feel, we think that's a pretty cool feature of the Veterans Monument, is to have that living aspect of it. And you can watch it right there. You could go to the website. You don't even have to be there. You can go to the website and watch all of them, or you can, while you're out on site, pull up somebody right there, and you could be staring at their brick paver and then watching an interview about them or by them and their service. So That's what we've done. It's at our, town green, and so there's a lot of entertainment around there too, but it is certainly a destination location in and of itself for those who want to maybe spend a few minutes thinking about those who've served and honoring their service.
This is, as we were talking before the show, this is something that hopefully America's Web Radio is doing, and we're not a local station. We're heard all over the world, and a lot of folks from coast to coast, and we have a great audience in Australia and in the UK as well. But if you're traveling, well, first off, let me beat on locals. If you live in Atlanta, in the Atlanta area, and you haven't been to Peachtree Corners, or I'm going to play a spot in a minute for the Georgia Military Veterans Hall of Fame, and Rick White, who's the director, and also Johns Creek, that has the wall that heals. It's the replica of the Vietnam Veterans Wall in Washington, D.C., and this is the one that traveled all over the United States. And Johns Creek bought it and has given it a permanent home in Newtown Park. And so if you live in Atlanta or around Atlanta and haven't been to these different locations, you deserve it. You deserve to take your kids to it or your grandkids to these locations. Make day trips out of it. And it'll be worth every minute that you spend there. And just like Brian was saying, as far as Peachtree Corners is concerned, not only can you make a day trip out of it, there are great restaurants all around that you can eat at, and just be with your family and do something for your family and the veterans that have kept us free, and learn about them.
And Memorial Day coming up is a great day to decide to maybe do that, where
Absolutely.
You can go to each, and then in the Johns Creek case, I mean, theirs is, about, inside of 10 miles away from ours. So you could actually go see both and experience some of the amenities. Newtown Park has, kind of city park amenities to it. Our town center has some of those, and restaurants and other. So you can make a day of it, or a half a day of it. But yes, I mean, we have a great opportunity to do it here in a couple weeks.
Oh, yeah, no question about it. And we certainly encourage you to. And if you're traveling from another country and coming to the Atlanta area, it's worth your while to do it as well. And or if you're just traveling from California, they ain't got nothing like what we got.
Well, you don't even have to, you actually don't even have to, if you can't physically go there. Again, our monument has a website. Mm-hmm. If you do Peachtree Corners Veterans Monument, you can pull up the website, and then you can watch the interviews of the, a lot of the people who are honored in the Brick Paver Plaza there. So you can actually experience it from anywhere.
This is one thing that I find very interesting, and I always, whatever show we happen to be doing or involved in, but the things that I learn from each one of the shows, and, it's like I said about Rick White and Georgia Military Veterans Hall of Fame. And, Georgia, Peachtree Corners, Johns Creek, and certainly downtown Atlanta with the Hall of Fame have been leaders, and other states now are beginning to copy us and asking advice, and I'm sure you get calls all the time. How do you do it? What do we do? How do we raise the money? And this is it. I'm a Texan and always will be a Texan, but I have pride in Georgia that we've been the leaders. Cities like Peachtree Corners and Johns Creek and so forth that have taken it on yourselves, and we must have some of the most wonderful veterans living near Peachtree Corners or from all over the state.
We do, and we are convinced that the success of our effort and the attractiveness of our monument is due to really what's a public-private partnership between the private citizens that form the group to fundraise, to generate buzz, energy, interest in it, to go out and shake the trees of all the veterans that sometimes are hidden that you don't realize you've got gyms right in your backyard of people who served in really interesting places or during really interesting times in our history. And, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be, during combat. I mean, there are certainly some places and experiences we've had in our history that don't result in bullets flying. And, but to shake the trees and get all of that going to where you get people making contributions, you're doing fundraising, but then the public side of it is once that happens, sometimes these efforts fail at the end because there's really not a long-term solution to how is it going to be maintained once you construct it. Where are you going to find property to put it? Who's going to maintain web platforms and, so on and so forth, organize events. And sometimes the local resident volunteers, they come and go, and unfortunately in the cycle of life they pass away, and you got to have some plan on how to maintain it, which is where we think in our case the public part comes, and led by Mayor Mason and Councilman Wright, and then the rest of the city council being very supportive of it. The city is involved in making sure that it stays a great facility. It's maintained properly. We can continue to add brick pavers, more interviews, web hosting, all the things that you need to have an organization be there to do. The city's there to do because we know the city will always exist. And so when you make it a part of our, yearly operations and you put money in the budget to ensure that it stays at a high level, that public-private partnership is what we feel is how this effort has been a success and will continue to be a success. So if there's anybody considering it, I would be highly encourage you to come up with that partnership between the local volunteers and the fabric of the community and a public entity that can make sure that once that effort is done, that whatever product they've produced, it maintains at a high level.
Brian, we're going to take out a minute to hear a couple of announcements, and we'll be back with Brian right after this. Stay tuned.
Hi, this is Rocky Blair, former four-time Super Bowl champion with the Pittsburgh Steelers and Vietnam veteran. As a board member, I'd like to talk to you about Warriors to Citizen, a nonprofit organization that helps American heroes, soldiers, police, fire, EMT, and their families recover from the psychological harm caused by career-induced stress. The last 20 years, broken relationships have been a major causal factor for the highest documented divorce rate and resulting suicides in this population. This program, From Warriors to Citizen, is delivered free to families by professionals, all whom served in uniform and understand the needs to be addressed. I ask for your support, so please go to our website, warriorstocitizen.org, and find out how you can help, either by making a donation or sharing this information with an American hero that you may know. And thank you.
Hello, my name is Rick White, and I'm the director of the Georgia Military Veterans Hall of Fame. I want to encourage all Georgia veterans to consider being nominated to the Georgia Military Veterans Hall of Fame. And if you are a Georgia veteran, and the definition of a Georgia veteran is either you were born in the state of Georgia, or you've lived here 10 years, or you were raised to right hand and joined the military in this state, you are considered a Georgia veteran. For further information, go to www.gmbhof.org, or you can contact me at 678-427-0915. We'd love to have your nomination for the Georgia Military Veterans Hall of Fame. Thank you so much.
This is America's Web Radio. Would you like to have a show, talk about your business, or express your opinion on America's Web Radio? Just email gm@americaswebradio.com and we'll get back to you. Thank you. And we appreciate you listening to America's Web Radio. And we have the city manager of Peachtree Corners with us today, Brian Johnson. And Brian is a veteran himself. And we've been talking about the memorial that you all have at Peachtree Corners. And you've got an event coming up for Memorial Day, is that?
We do. So we have a Veterans Memorial there's a nonprofit that was set up to fundraise and kind of, lead the effort to construct the Veterans Monument that we have. And they organize a number of events at the monument itself. And we have one coming up on Memorial Day, in which it'll be it's a pretty cool event in and of itself, where you have honor guard. You'll have a guest speaker, usually a prominent military veteran that will speak. Of course, Mayor Mason and Councilman Wright are always involved. You'll oftentimes have some visiting dignitaries. We've had consul generals there and others, and so it'll be a program, but it'll be there to to speak about what Memorial Day is, what it means, and letting that backdrop of the monument be one for those who want to take the time that day to serve to do the very reason why it that holiday exists, and that's to honor those who've paid the ultimate sacrifice. And then usually there's another event also on Veterans Day, which of course exists to honor veterans both alive and dead, versus Memorial Day is to memorialize those who pay the ultimate sacrifice. So we have events there quite a bit. Some others have done some events there, which is one of the whole reasons that we made the thing, is use it as part of or a backdrop to events that have some veteran-oriented theme. And this Memorial Day will be the very next one, so we're excited.
And you have your honor guard there, and like I said, I always go a bit crazy over that. And do y'all have a drum and bugle corps that work with you at all?
Sometimes. So, these will be visiting. Oftentimes we'll use the local, JROTC unit. But we did believe at the ribbon cutting, we had one there. But yeah, those are hard. There's not a lot of them, so it's sometimes hard to get them. But that is even cooler. I've been a part of that in parades when I was in, and then even when I was in ROTC at Georgia, we would have some. I've done color guard and honor guard for Georgia football games, and that's also cool to have 100,000 people in the stadium, cheering at the end of the national anthem when you're standing there, holding the flag at the 50-yard line. It's pretty cool.
I can only imagine. This is. I worry about our country, as many folks are doing today, but I still think my opinion is we have a backbone that can't be broken. And there's folks like yourself. One other question and we had this happen. We have a general that was doing a show for us, remembering Desert Shield and Desert Storm, and during the pandemic. And I've asked every veteran that has come in, if your country called, would you answer?
In a second, with no hesitation.
And I've had no veterans say that they wouldn't. Even if, as old as I am, I might be pushing my walker, but I can still get in the office and type. And I think this is one of the greatest assets that our country has. And you may be able to wound us, but you can't break us.
It is nice. We all have, are part of generations. And as we remember when we were young, and the older generations would be talking in a somewhat sarcastic way about our generation, your generation doesn't do it as well as ours. And then as we get older, you find yourself saying the same thing about younger ones too. But while generations change, and sometimes not always for the best, you are right. It is refreshing to see examples. And I saw examples of this when I was in my last duty station, was actually in command of a basic training company. And so it was kind of my last 9 months before it was time for me to resign my commission. And so I was there commanding new recruits coming into the Army to go through infantry basic training. And while there are certainly were certainly some kids that could probably be called punks at the time, that were coming in. One, most of the kids were good, solid people, and even the ones who started out not quite that way, at the end, you'd be surprised that the quality of individual that you're kind of like, all right, we're still okay. We still have a generation. They may not do the things the way our generation did. They may do things as a cohort that we scratch our heads and we don't agree with, but down to the core, those kids love their country. They were willing to put either other career, progression on hold, or they were prepared to commit to that one. They did so voluntarily. They were motivated. They were ready to let Uncle Sam again write whatever he needed to on that blank check they gave him, and it makes you feel like, okay, we're still okay. We have a backbone, like you said, that can't be broken. We can go through unique times, but when push comes to shove, we are still, we're good.
Like I said earlier, there have been times that, why in the world did we do that, particularly during basic and AIT? But our military has been practicing this for
leadership development. Yep,
240 years, and I think they got it down pretty good. We all get a haircut like yours when we go in, so we all sort of look alike, and there's a little humble pie with you that goes with it, and then they start building you up. And I know by the time I'd gone through AIT, I was charged, and it just, and you learn camaraderie. You learn that you cover your buddy's back, you cover their six or whatever you want to call it, and that you work together as a team. And I can't remember the circumstance, but I was watching a deal about kids, and I don't want to get involved with it, with that have learning difficulties, or they have whatever the initials are. But you always have somebody in your platoon, or maybe you have a couple, and I don't know what you all call them. We used to throw them a blanket party, and it was amazing how they would straighten up and fly right and start doing stuff for the group as opposed to doing stuff for themselves or trying to stand out by themselves.
If you can get somebody to accept that, they are an important cog, but merely a cog in a much bigger wheel, but an important one, you can get people to do things that they would not do if they were only working for just themselves. I mean, and there are easy examples of that. I'll tell you right now, once I really embraced that unit think, like, all right, I'm a part of a unit and I'm an important part, and if I don't perform well, I drag others down. You'd be surprised what you can do. I mean, just in running, I will tell you right now, some of my fastest run times, like if you're running 3 or 5 miles or however long, or ruck marching or whatever, I would run for long distance much faster if I'm in a group. And I did not want to be that guy that fell out of the formation or slowed the group down. And then you play the mental games you need to stay up there, because I was part of a group and I didn't want to let the rest of them down. Even in something as simple as running 5 miles in formation, you didn't want to be the one to be the slowest guy. And if I was running by myself, I would certainly not have pushed myself to the level. But once you get that, you're part of a team. Don't let the team down. Don't be the guy who, holds them back. All of a sudden, that your level of motivation is ratcheted up way more than if it was just you.
And this is, like I said, the military has had a lot of practice, and and this is another point that I bring up during our shows, is that we honor our first responders as well. And I was an EMT, and we honor our firemen, our police, but that's what we are as a country. We're first responders. Everybody in the country is a first responder. There is no country in the world that responds to a national or world disaster like the United States. So our military is first responders, our firemen, our police, and I go nuts over this defund the police. Let's fund psychologists. Yeah, I want to call a psychologist to come help me when somebody's breaking in my house. This is garbage, and we are so lucky and so blessed to live in the United States and have our first responders, whether it's police or fire or military, whatever it is. But we're world first responders, and nobody can match us, nor have they ever.
No argument for me, that's for sure.
Well, you all have, I don't know, all I can address is Johns Creek, and they have a very good police department, and I'm sure Peachtree Corners does as well, and they should be saluted all the time. I can't, anybody that wants to defund the police, we suggest that they do a buddy ride with a cop at midnight, and they be the first ones to climb in that broken window in a black warehouse and find out who's on the other side. Let them do it a few times. But I didn't mean to get off on political stuff.
No, it takes a special kind of person to, run to the sound of the guns, not away from it, or run towards the fire, not away from it. And yes, from a domestic standpoint, they are to be as commended as the military for choosing that profession, which certainly is not chosen for them to get wealthy. And it's difficult, public safety, medical community too. I mean, a lot of things they see, subjected to, deal with, are just not for everybody. But we can't survive without it. And so, there are certainly lots of professions that are part of something that's greater than that individual, part of a calling.
We'll be announcing, hopefully within the next couple of weeks, not sure on date exactly yet, but we have a very close friend that is a dentist as well as an MD, and he's developed a product that works with folks that have PTSD, be it military or, after this COVID thing, there are going to be lots of folks with PTSD coming out of it, and they can't sleep for one reason or another. But he has a product that has been around for years, but he's just made a little adjustment to it, and already approved by the FDA, and it's going to be one of the greatest things because of PTSD. When you're suffering from PTSD and you can't sleep, then this causes a lot of other problems that folks know about. So we're going to be making a very big announcement about that shortly. And, if you've got, by the way, I always forget to mention, if you get a pen and paper, if you've got a question about what we're doing, or if you'd like to make a comment on one of our shows, or Brian, how can they get a hold of you at Peachtree Corners?
Well, our website, excuse me, peachtreecornersga.gov is our website. On there is, about everything you can, how to contact us. Send, if you are in the city, we actually have a phone app that is basically an all-in-one app for you to do all things that you would need as a, resident of the city. For instance, you can get city weather, events. You can find out where there are open parking spots at our town center in the parking deck. You can send work requests to the city. There's a dead deer in the road. Can you come pick it up? You can even send coordinates of where it's at. You can, do all sorts of things. Find out where restaurants, make reservations with some, which ones are open. All on one phone app. Which you can download from the website too. But we have I would put our IT and, web, specialty against anybody. We have a very technologically advanced city, and we spend a lot of time making sure that our residents have access to unique stuff via the World Wide Web. And so if they want to get a hold of anything with the city, the website, it's all there, and we're there to serve.
And I wouldn't belittle your mayor by any means, but I do feel honored to be sitting across from the city manager, and you have a heck of a job that you're doing quite well, and we commend and respect you for it. And I'm sure that as we have talked, some of this leadership training came from your military experience, and when you attack the tough, it becomes easier towards the end. And
it certainly does. It is a part of me. There's no doubt about it. Whether I had some traits that I learned prior to it, I'm sure. Upbringing has a lot to do with it too. So, I certainly have, family, parents, all that kind of stuff to thank. But without a doubt, the military helped hone, my ability to either lead or hopefully my ability to be a very good, servant leader or follower of others who are leading me at that time. So, like we all do, you try to do the best you can every day, and as long as you can look yourself in the mirror and feel like you did your best, that's all you can ask.
That's it. And Peachtree Corners is a beautiful spot just to visit. And like you mentioned, you all have some of the best restaurants going. And we suggest, if you're listening from out of town or out of state, or even if you're in downtown Atlanta and you haven't been to Peachtree Corners, we highly suggest that you go there, take a day, maybe even, what are your hotels like in Peachtree Corners? And
we've got everything from, we've got 2 full-service convention center hotels, a Hilton and a Marriott, all the way down to, Residence Inn, Homewood Suites. We've got all sorts of different kinds of hotels depending on what you're looking for. Again, we've got a town center that has everything from, restaurants to entertainment like, Cinebistro, which is a boutique movie theater where you can actually watch a movie in a lazy boy and get your meal delivered to you while you're watching, a movie on a cinema quality, screen and sound system. So, like all cities, we have unique things that are, cool to us, but we're also surrounded by other things too. So you can just come up to the area and spend the day going to all sorts of things in North Metro Atlanta.
I think it would be great if you haven't had your vacation, take a weekend off. Stay up there where you don't have to drive back and forth, and just take it and walk it, and appreciate that Peachtree Corners was wise enough to hire a gentleman called Brian Johnson, and you've done a heck of a job, Brian. And
I couldn't do it myself, that's for sure, but thank you.
I hope you'll take the message back to your mayor that we support Peachtree Corners and any veteran type organization, but anyone that has taken the effort to salute our veterans. We support them. And we're going to have to, we got a couple more minutes. Is there anything that I've missed?
No, one, I appreciate, doing shows like this. There's oftentimes it's hard to find venues for certain, information to get out, whether it's veteran stories or, whether it's information about local, events, local attractions, like the Veterans Monument or whatever. So appreciate what you're doing with that, because, again, these are hard to find as sources of information become much more diffuse. There's just all over the map. Some people get their news from radio, but a lot, people get it from print. They get it from Facebook. They get it from Instagram. They're all over the place. And so it's hard sometimes to find, opportunities like this to talk and have a conversation, about something more in depth than, 1 or 2 minute soundbite posted on TikTok or Instagram. So
let me ask one quick question. And we've got about 2 minutes to go, but the effect of COVID on Peachtree Corners in general and on the park as well.
Well, we're no different than anybody else. We've gone through a cycle, the shelter in place, the, trying to figure out what you can do when. The city itself, we kind of feel like, look, we are a public organization that exists to serve the public. So we've basically not closed down at all because we're there to serve. And so, most of my senior staff have been coming into City Hall the whole time. We've just been, obviously a little bit more careful. And there's certainly been some mask component to it, but we've still been serving. And then, mayor and council have a number of times done things either temporary or permanent to help our local economy, the businesses and those in need within the city, doing things, being more creative in things like helping restaurants increase their outdoor seating so they can, or takeout opportunities. We've disseminated CARES Act and now Rescue Plan money to businesses that are in need, helping, trying to still have special events, but doing it in a responsible way so the community still has something to take their mind off of COVID. We've really ramped up communication through official sources to our residents so that they can make sure they're getting information about things related to COVID that they may not be able to have access to. So we've been just trying to be a good conduit for, our residents to both get information or to help them deal with it just like everybody else. So we're not unique, but we certainly are not sitting back and, shrugging our shoulders and saying, oh, there's nothing we can do. There are certainly things we can do to make it just a little bit easier on everybody to deal with.
Okay, well, I'm going to put you on the spot, Brian. So, as you said, we try to disseminate and send out information. So, can we be one of your conduits for getting that word out when y'all got something special coming up?
Done. Consider it done.
And we don't want to keep it a secret.
Well, we don't either. We, thank you for that offer. I will take you up on it.
You got it. And we'll be glad to do it during this show or any of our shows. And just like I said, we work with Rick White and the Georgia Military Veterans Hall of Fame. And anything that has something to do with veterans, that's honoring our veterans, we're happy to support, and we'll support every day of the week. With that being said, we're going to have to, as they say, put the plug in the jug and move on, get out of here. And we look forward to, will you come back and be on again?
If you'll have me, I would be glad to.
You got it. You're going to be on. We'll see you next week, folks.
Hello, my name is Rick White, and I'm the director of the Georgia Military Veterans Hall of Fame. I want to encourage all Georgia veterans to consider being nominated to the Georgia Military Veterans Hall of Fame. And if you're